always scary. But even more so when you think it's young guys like Sam and Henry that had to go to war.
Man, what would these guys do to defend New Zealand? PlayStation? Enemy to death, maybe?
Or stab them with their jolt up here.
Yeah, it is frightening to think, though, that our brothers, our boyfriends, and even these two could be killed in war.
Hard out. You ready?
Ready.
ANZAC Day comes along every year, but do people our age really understand its importance? This is Steve Clark. He's the official historian for the RSA. Sup, Steve?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Now, can you tell us what ANZAC Day means?
Well, ANZAC Day is about commemorating the landing at Gallipoli Peninsula on the 25th of April 1915. And ANZAC stands for the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. For 8 months there, the Australians, New Zealanders and the British fought against the Turks.
Why today do we commemorate that day?
That's the first battle that New Zealanders were involved in the First World War. And in total, we lost 18,000 lives in the First World War and another 11,000 in the Second World War and more in the Korea, Malaya, Borneo, Vietnam. You know, that's a large number.
Steve, why did we go halfway across the world to fight someone else's war?
Well, in some ways, it wasn't somebody else's war. It was also our war because we were a part, in the First World War, part of the British Empire. So it was like fighting for home. Second World War, there was Nazism in Europe taking over. And if we hadn't been involved in defeating Japan with the United States and Britain, I mean, we could have been invaded by Japan.
Did you have to go to war?
And in the First World War, 1916, there were such casualties that to maintain our commitment to the First World War, the government had to introduce conscription. And that was a ballot. There was a bull, they took it out, and that was your number that was matched to a registrar. It's like lotto, except you're going to lose, and potentially lose your life at a roll of a bull.
That's the scariest thing I've ever heard of. Steve, what does the cenotaph behind us represent?
Well, just as ANZAC Day provided a day of solace for families that were deprived of a final funeral, and on ANZAC Day, you know, these become the surrogate headstone.
Because so many soldiers didn't have graves?
Out of that 30,000, 28,000 are buried overseas.
This is Metua. He's a Vietnam veteran. Kia ora. Can you tell us a little bit about what this place means to you?
This place is a castle.
A castle?
Yep. It's a place where we come and have a yarn with our friends. Sometimes we talk about the old times being in the army and what we did, good or bad.
What was your role in the army?
I went there as a rifleman.
Why do you think it was important for you to go?
Not only to represent this country, but to represent myself and my family.
Can you tell us a little bit about the war that you were in?
Vietnam was a beautiful country. I think till we went there, we spoiled their country, and it was hard.
Were you ever afraid that you were going to die?
Well, I'm no hero. Of course I was afraid. I think all my mates, we were afraid.
And you lost people that were close to you?
Yes. There were two from my company, and one was a very good friend. At the end, I named my eldest son after him.
Metua, what do you do on ANZAC Day?
I'll probably be up about 4 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast. Before I come to the RSA, I have or I have a print myself.
It's hard to talk about. Well, thank you so much for sharing your amazing story with us today. I'm really proud of you, and I know all of us out there will be too. Thank you very much. So the next time you hear of conflict in the world and wish there was something you could do about it, remember that's what our soldiers did and are still doing, lest we forget.
You know, if you think about it, Sam, if the Allies lost the war, we could be eating sauerkraut and sausages instead of taro and oka.
What about ANZAC biscuits? I like those.
I don't know about that one.
That can only mean one thing. It's prize time!
Up for grabs, you could win 6 Village Sky City cinema tickets.
That's right, all you have to do is log onto the website below and tell us, what does ANZAC stand for?
Hey, you should chuck in some Ginzu knives.
Maybe so, maybe so.